The wind howled across the dry Wyoming plains, carrying dust, loneliness, and the faint smell of hay. Eli Walker tightened the frayed strap of his old bag and looked down at the crumpled $20 bill in his hand. It was all he had left. $20, the last memory of a life that used to mean something. Once upon a time, Eli had a ranch, a family, and dreams bigger than the endless sky. But that was before the fire. Before the debts. Before the world decided he wasn't worth saving. Now he slept wherever the night caught him, sometimes in abandoned barns, sometimes under trucks parked behind the diner. Folks in town barely noticed him anymore. To them, he was just another drifter who'd lost his way. But what they didn't know was that Eli still carried something inside him, a stubborn flicker of faith. Maybe it was foolishness, maybe hope. He couldn't tell the difference anymore. That morning, he wandered to the small livestock auction at the edge of town. The wooden pens were filled with restless horses, their coats dull, their eyes tired. Farmers called out bids, the auctioneer shouted prices, and the air buzzed with the smell of sweat and sawdust. Eli had no reason to be there. He didn't have land, tools, or even a place to keep a horse. But something in him, maybe instinct, maybe destiny, pulled him toward the crowd. And then he saw her. In the farthest corner of the corral stood a mare unlike the others. Her coat was pale gray, her mane tangled, her left hind leg trembling with every breath. The tag on her halter read simply, Lot number 47, injured, unfit. No one bid on her. A man near the fence laughed and said, "That one's ready for the dog food factory." Another shouted, "Not worth a dime." But Eli didn't move. His eyes locked on hers, wide, frightened, but somehow, pleading. There was something in that horse's gaze that reminded him of his own reflection the night he lost everything. Broken, scared, but still alive. When the auctioneer sighed and prepared to move on, Eli raised his hand. $20, he said quietly. The crowd chuckled. The auctioneer frowned. "You sure, son? She won't make it a week." Eli nodded. "I'm sure." And just like that, with the only $20 he had left in the world, Eli Walker bought a dying horse. As the sun began to sink behind the barns, he led her away with a borrowed rope. The mare limped beside him, every step slow and painful, yet she followed without resistance. He whispered to her softly, "We'll figure it out, girl, just hold on." He didn't know where they were going. He didn't know why he'd done it. But as night fell over the silent plains, one thing was certain, that decision would change his life forever. Because that lame mare wasn't what she seemed. She was hiding something that would soon turn Eli Walker's broken life into a story no one in Wyoming would ever forget. Eli led the mare through the quiet fields as night settled over the plains. The moonlight painted the dry grass silver, and the wind carried a low hum that felt almost like a song. The mare stumbled with every few steps, her limp getting worse, but she never stopped following. Eli glanced down at her, his hand resting on the coarse rope, and whispered, "Don't give up on me, girl. I've got nothing left but you now." He didn't even know why he said it that way. Maybe because it was true. A few miles out of town stood what used to be an old feed store. The roof was half collapsed, the walls eaten by weather and time, but it was shelter. That's where Eli brought her. He tore apart an old bale of hay, spread it over the dirt floor, and helped her lie down. Her breathing was rough, every exhale shaking through her ribs like she was holding on by a thread. He knelt beside her and brushed the dust from her mane. "You'll make it through the night," he murmured, even though he wasn't sure she would. He didn't even have medicine or clean water, just that stubborn need to help something that couldn't help itself. Maybe because nobody had done the same for him. He stayed up the whole night, listening to her breathing. Sometimes he'd close his eyes and see flashes of his old life, his ranch burning, his wife Sarah screaming his name as flames devoured everything they'd built. He remembered the smell of smoke, the cries of his little girl, and then, nothing. The fire had taken them. It had taken everything. Since that night, Eli had never forgiven himself. But somehow, watching this broken mare fight to breathe made him feel a spark of something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. When dawn broke, the light slipped through the cracks in the roof, landing on the mare's flank. Eli noticed something strange: a faint mark beneath the layer of dirt and dried mud. He leaned closer, gently brushing the spot with his hand. The mare flinched, but didn't pull away. Slowly, the mark revealed itself: a brand, but not any brand he recognized. It was shaped like a circle, with a tiny symbol inside, almost like a crest. Eli frowned. That was odd. Cattle brands were common, but this was too intricate, too deliberate. It looked almost expensive. "Where'd you come from, girl?" he whispered. "You're no ordinary ranch horse, are you?" The mare blinked, breathing heavily, as if trying to respond. Eli reached for his water canteen and let her drink from it. She drank greedily, then pressed her nose against his hand. It wasn't affection, it was trust. In that single touch, something shifted between them. She wasn't just a dying animal anymore. She was a survivor. Like him. Over the next few days, Eli nursed her with whatever he could find: old oats, melted snow, herbs from the edge of the field. He talked to her while patching holes in the roof, telling her stories about Sarah, about the ranch, about the fire. He named her Grace, because that's what she brought him. Grace when he thought he deserved none. Then, one morning, Grace stood up without help. Her limp was still there, but her eyes, they were alive again. That's when Eli noticed something else. The brand on her flank seemed newer than it should be, almost like someone had burned it recently to hide something else underneath. Eli's heart skipped a beat. He fetched a damp rag, wiped the dirt away carefully, and under the faint symbol, he saw the faded outline of another mark, a royal-looking emblem he'd seen once before, years ago, on prize horses belonging to the richest breeder in the entire state. Eli stepped back, stunned. "What the hell are you doing here, Grace?" he whispered. Because if he was right, that horse wasn't just some broken mare from a dusty auction. She belonged to a man whose horses were worth millions. And suddenly, Eli Walker realized he might have just bought the biggest secret in Wyoming for $20. Eli couldn't shake the thought from his head all morning. The strange brand burned itself into his mind, clearer now that he'd scrubbed the dirt away. Beneath the fresh scar was something older, something that didn't belong on a half-dead mare from a rundown auction. He knelt beside Grace and studied the faint lines again. Yes, he was sure of it. He'd seen that emblem before, years ago, when he worked as a ranch hand for the Harrington estate, the richest horse-breeding family in Wyoming. The Harringtons were legends. Their bloodline of racing horses had won championships across the country, selling for hundreds of thousands, sometimes even millions. Each horse bore that very emblem, a circle enclosing a stylized H crowned with a flame. Only horses bred from their elite line carried that mark. And now one of them was standing right in front of him, thin, trembling, and barely alive. Eli stood there for a long time, trying to make sense of it. "No way," he muttered. "You can't be one of those." He remembered the security, the guarded fences, the high-profile buyers. There was no world in which a Harrington mare should have ended up abandoned and sold for slaughter. He brushed Grace's neck gently, watching how she responded. Her coat was still dull, but her eyes had changed, more alert, more aware. He saw intelligence there, almost as if she knew she'd been recognized. "You've got a story to tell, haven't you?" he said softly. That night, Eli walked to town and stopped by Tom's Diner, a place he hadn't entered in months. "Eli Walker," the owner said, "thought you left town." "Almost did," Eli replied. "Need a favor." "You still keep those old auction records?" Tom pulled out a binder. "Lot 47, he said. "Injured gray mare. Seller's name, private listing. No address." Eli frowned. "Private listing? That's unusual." "Happens sometimes," Tom said. "Why? What's special about this one?" "Just a feeling," Eli murmured. He left, his mind racing. That phrase, private listing. didn't sit right. It smelled of secrets. Back at the barn, Grace stood stronger, almost proud. He led her into the open and let her trot. Her limp faded with each stride. The way she moved, poised, graceful, trained, confirmed it. This was no ordinary horse. But then something else caught his eye, a faint glint beneath her skin near her hip. He ran his hand along it and froze. It was hard. Metallic. Not natural. What the hell, he whispered. Someone had hidden something inside her. And in that moment, Eli realized his $20 miracle had just become a dangerous mystery. Eli didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the barn made his pulse quicken. He couldn't stop thinking about that metallic lump. He sat under the glow of a lantern, whispering, "What did they do to you, girl?" By dawn, he made up his mind. He saddled Grace and rode toward Doc Miller's clinic. "Doc," Eli said, "there's something strange under her skin." The old vet pressed his fingers on the spot and frowned. "That's not infection. It's too smooth." He took an X-ray, and there it was, a small, round metallic object, no bigger than a coin, buried near the bone. "Looks like a capsule," Doc muttered. "Titanium casing. Someone put this there." Eli's stomach tightened. "Can you take it out?" "It's risky," Doc warned. "But I'll try." An hour later, he removed it, slick with blood, engraved around the edge. He cleaned it, squinting under the light. Property of Harrington Estates. Confidential Biotracking Unit, serial #HX974. Eli went pale. "Biotracking?" "Military-grade tech," Doc said quietly. "Worth thousands." Eli's heart pounded. "So she's not just a lost horse." "No," Doc said. "She's evidence." Eli looked at Grace, then at the capsule glinting under the lamp. Someone hadn't just hidden a chip, they'd hidden a secret worth a fortune. And now, whoever lost it would come looking. As he led Grace back into the fading light, Eli knew one thing for certain: his quiet, broken life was over. The man behind that chip wouldn't stop until they had it back. And when they came, they'd find Eli Walker waiting. By the time the sun had set behind the western ridge, Eli's mind was a battlefield of questions. He sat in the dark barn with Grace, the metallic capsule lying on a rag near his boot, gleaming faintly in the lamplight. What was inside it? Why had it been hidden in a horse? And most of all, why had the Harrington name been etched into it? He turned it over in his calloused hands. The engraving was precise, machine-cut, not the kind of thing a rancher could do with ordinary tools. Confidential Biotracking Unit. The words echoed in his head like a warning. It wasn't just valuable, it was secret. Grace stirred behind him, shifting her weight with a soft grunt. Her eyes caught the light, calm and trusting. She didn't know what she carried or the storm it had brought. Eli reached over and patted her neck. "Don't worry, girl," he said quietly. "I'll figure this out." But deep down, he already knew he wasn't dealing with something small. He needed information, and there was only one man in town who ever worked closely enough with the Harringtons to know what they were hiding. His name was Clint Harper, a mechanic who used to repair transport trucks for the Harrington estate. He was loud, greedy, and always owed someone money, but Clint had ears everywhere. If anyone knew about secret shipments or lost horses, it'd be him. Eli found him the next morning in the back of Rusty's garage, half drunk, wiping grease from his hands with an old rag. When Eli stepped in, Clint smirked. "Well, look who crawled out of the dust. Walker, right? The horseman who lost his ranch." Eli ignored the jab. "Need to ask you something, Clint. You still working with the Harrington estate?" "Work's a big word," Clint said, leaning against the bench. "Let's say I do a few odd jobs." "Why?" Eli set the metal capsule on the table. The smirk vanished from Clint's face instantly. "Where the hell did you get that?" "Found it in a horse I bought at auction," Eli said slowly. "She's branded Harrington." Injured, almost dead. This was under her skin. Clint's jaw tightened. You shouldn't have that. Why not? Clint glanced around, lowering his voice. You didn't hear this from me, but the Harringtons have been running some kind of experimental breeding program. Not your usual show horse stuff, we're talking government contracts, tracking genetics, microchips, high-tech monitoring. Some say they're crossbreeding to create horses for biotech trials. And rumor is, one went missing. Eli frowned. A horse? Or an experiment? Clint met his gaze. Same thing, if you ask them. They were looking for it. Had men driving all over the county. Offering cash, no questions asked. That's probably why she ended up listed as private. Someone was covering it up. Eli felt his stomach drop. He thought back to Grace, her trembling leg, her scarred flank. They hadn't just owned her, they'd used her. What happens if they find out I have her? He asked. Clint's answer came without hesitation. They'll take her. And they won't care if you're standing in the way. Eli's fists clenched. Over my dead body. Clint leaned forward. You don't get it, Walker. These aren't regular folks. They've got lawyers, security, and government money. If that chip's what I think it is, it could contain DNA data, banking access codes, or even something bigger. Whatever it is, it's worth millions. Eli took the capsule back and slipped it into his pocket. His heart pounded. Then I'll find out what's inside before they do. He turned to leave, but Clint grabbed his sleeve. If you're serious about that, there's one person who can help, Mara Kent. Used to be a biotech researcher for Harrington. She quit after some scandal, disappeared out near Cottonwood Creek. You find her, she might tell you what you're holding. Eli nodded, his mind already set. Then that's where I'm going. As he mounted Grace later that evening, a storm was brewing on the horizon. The wind smelled like rain and danger. He tightened the reins, whispering, "Hang on, girl. We're riding straight into trouble." Grace snorted, stamping the dirt, as if she understood. And with that, Eli Walker rode off into the night, unaware that a black SUV had already pulled into town, its headlights slicing through the dust, carrying two men who had orders to find the lost Harrington mare and eliminate whoever had her. The rain came down hard that night, drumming against Eli's old hat as he guided Grace along the muddy road toward Cottonwood Creek. The world was a blur of gray and thunder. Grace pushed on bravely, her strength surprising him more every hour. For a horse that had once been at death's door, she moved now with a quiet, powerful rhythm, as if she knew the road ahead mattered. By dawn, he reached a small cabin at the edge of the creek, half hidden among pine trees, smoke curling faintly from its chimney. Eli tied Grace to a post and knocked on the door. There was no answer. He knocked again, louder. Finally, the door creaked open, revealing a woman with sharp eyes and unkempt hair, a pistol aimed straight at his chest. "Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying," she snapped. "I'm not selling anything," Eli said, raising his hand slowly. "Clint Harper sent me." Her eyes narrowed. "That drunk fool? Why?" Eli hesitated, then pulled the metallic capsule from his pocket. "Because of this." The moment she saw it, her expression changed. The gun wavered, then dropped slightly. "Where did you get that?" "From a horse," Eli said. "A mare with a Harrington brand. I bought her at an auction." They were going to put her down. Mara stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You said she's alive?" "Barely, but she's recovering." Mara let out a breath that sounded almost like relief. "You need to come inside. Now." The cabin was cluttered with books, old computers, glass vials, and scientific notes. Mara cleared a spot on the table and set the capsule down gently, like it was something sacred. "You don't understand what you're holding," she said. "That chip isn't just for tracking horses. It's part of a project called Equinox." "Equinox?" 3 years ago, the Harringtons partnered with a biotech lab to create a genetic archive. They used horses as living data vaults, storing encrypted information inside microscopic biochips implanted under the skin. Safer than hard drives, impossible to hack. Those chips could contain anything: scientific research, DNA codes, even black market financial data. Eli stared at her. "You're saying my horse is carrying data?" "Not just data," Mara said quietly. The Equinox prototype contained a full digital encryption key to an offshore account, worth over $8 million. Eli's mouth went dry. $8 million? Mara nodded grimly. They used that mare as a carrier. She escaped the facility during a transport fire last year. The Harringtons covered it up, called it a breeding accident. They've been hunting for her ever since. Eli leaned against the table, mind reeling. So that's what they're after. Not her, what's inside her. And now you have it, Mara said. They'll stop at nothing to get it back. The moment they find out you took her, you're marked. Eli looked toward the window where Grace stood calmly under the gray morning light. She's been through enough, he muttered. They're not getting near her. If you want to protect her, destroy that chip, Mara said. Not until I know what's in it. If it's money, I can use it to give her a real chance. You're playing with fire, Walker. People have died over less. Before he could respond, headlights cut through the window, sharp, bright, moving fast up the muddy path. Mara froze. You didn't tell anyone you were coming, did you? No. Car doors slammed. Voices shouted outside, deep, commanding. Mara grabbed her pistol. They found you. Eli turned toward the door, his jaw tightening. Then they're about to find out I'm not the same man they left behind. 2 men in black suits were approaching, one carrying a rifle. Rain poured between flashes of lightning. Thunder rolled like war drums across the valley. The hunt for Grace had begun. The storm exploded over the valley, rain slamming against the cabin's roof, lightning cutting the sky in white ribbons. Eli crouched by the door, clutching Mara's spare rifle, his heart beating in his throat. Outside, the headlights of the black SUV painted the trees in ghostly light. 2 men stepped out, dark suits, earpieces, calm like professionals. Mara checked her pistol. They're here for the chip. Once they have it, we disappear, permanently. Eli nodded. They'll have to go through me first. A voice called through the rain. Mr. Walker. Step outside, and no one gets hurt. Eli's eyes met Mara's. You believe that? She shook her head. He waited. The man's shadow crossed the porch. Eli swung the door open and fired a warning shot. The man jumped back, slipping. Easy there, cowboy. Then turn around and leave, Eli shouted. You don't understand, the other man said calmly. That chip doesn't just contain money. It holds classified genetic data, things that should never see the light of day. Eli frowned. Then maybe it's time people know. That's not your decision. The man reached for his gun. Mara shouted, Eli. A shot cracked the air. Eli dubbed behind a post. Grace neighed wildly outside. Lightning illuminated the scene, 2 men firing, Mara crouched behind the door, bullets splintering the walls. Eli aimed carefully and fired once. The first man's rifle flew from his hands. The second ducked behind the SUV. Then tires screeched, the SUV backing away into the rain. Mara rushed out, panting. They'll be back, and next time, they won't just send 2. Eli wiped rain from his face. Then we finish this before they do. He untied Grace. We need to know what's in this thing. There's a man in Cheyenne, Lau Kramer. Used to decode government tech before he disappeared. If anyone can open this, it's him. Mara hesitated. That's 2 days' ride. Eli looked at Grace. She's stronger than she looks. Mara grabbed her coat and climbed behind him. Then I'm coming. As they rode, the rain eased, leaving mist over the fields. The SUV's tracks glistened under the moonlight. Grace moved steadily, her breath steaming in the cold air. Eli could feel the power in her stride now, not the weakness of a dying mare, but the determination of something reborn. He glanced at the capsule in his pocket and whispered, "You've been hiding more than just a secret, haven't you, girl?" By sunrise, they reached the main road. In the distance, smoke rose from the town, faint but unmistakable. Mara turned pale. "That's coming from your barn." Eli froze. "They burned it," he muttered. "They're erasing everything." Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we make sure they don't erase the truth." Eli looked ahead, jaw set, eyes burning. "We're finishing this, Mara. Whatever's on this chip, it's not staying buried." And as dawn broke, the mare that once limped toward death now galloped toward destiny, carrying a man with nothing left to lose and a secret that could shatter everything. The wind bit cold against Eli's face as Grace thundered across the open plain. Every muscle in her body moved with the strength of something reborn. 2 days of riding had turned both man and horse into shadows of determination. Behind them, danger chased like a ghost; ahead, Cheyenne waited, and with it, the truth. When they reached the outskirts of town, dawn was breaking. The streets were empty. Mara guided them to a warehouse marked Lyle's Repairs. Lyle Kramer, once a government codebreaker, opened the door. "You brought trouble, Walker," he grumbled. Eli placed the capsule on the table. Lyle froze. "You stole this?" "Bought it," Eli said. "Out of a horse." Lyle stared, then laughed. "You're either the dumbest cowboy alive or the luckiest." Mara stepped forward. "It's part of Project Equinox." The humor left Lyle's face. "I helped build that encryption," he said. "If I open it, they'll know. You'll have 5 minutes before every tracker they own lights up." "5 minutes is enough," Eli replied. "What are you looking for, Walker? Money? Revenge?" Eli looked toward Grace. "The truth." Lyle sighed. "Then let's open Pandora's box." He inserted the chip into a scanner. The computer hummed. Data flashed across the screen: Harrington Biotech, Equinox Archives. Lyle's eyes widened. They weren't just storing DNA data. They were cloning. Crossbreeding human cells with equine DNA. Illegal experiments. They funneled profits through secret accounts, $8 million in hush money. Eli's stomach twisted. "So the horse, she was the experiment," Lyle finished. "Grace is the only surviving specimen. The chip doesn't just hold money. It holds proof of everything." Mara covered her mouth. "My God, they used her." Lyle looked up sharply. "They found us." A red light blinked on the monitor, location traced. Engines roared outside. "We have to go, now." Lyle shoved a flash stick into Eli's hand. "That's the backup. Everything's on it. Don't let it fall into their hands." Bullets shattered the windows. Eli ducked, pulling Mara toward the back. Grace reared as agents stormed in. Eli fired a warning shot, threw open the barn door. Rain poured again, the same storm that had started it all. "Run!" Lyle shouted. "Go!" Grace bolted forward, Eli and Mara on her back, splashing through puddles as the warehouse exploded behind them. They didn't look back. They rode for miles until the sound of pursuit faded. Mara clutched the flash stick. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually got it." Eli exhaled. "We didn't steal their money, we stole their truth." "What will you do with it?" Mara asked. "Expose them," he said. "Clear her name. Maybe rebuild what's left of mine." They rode until they reached the ridge where the valley opened into sunlight. Grace stopped, her mane whipping in the wind. She turned her head, looking at Eli, and he swore he saw gratitude in her eyes. He dismounted, removed the saddle, and set her free. Grace hesitated, then trotted into the open plains, her silver coat glowing in the dawn. She didn't look back. Mara stood beside him. "She'll be okay." Eli nodded. "Yeah. She's earned it." He pulled the flash stick from his pocket, holding it up to the rising sun, a small, gleaming proof that sometimes miracles come dressed in dirt and scars. "She was worth every dollar," he said quietly. "Every single one of those 20. And as the wind carried the last echo of hooves fading into the horizon, Eli Walker realized the $8 million secret wasn't just what the mare carried inside her, it was what she brought back to him. Hope, redemption, and the courage to live again.